Welcome to Come and See, your podcast for finding truth in a world of chaos. Brought to you by All for Jesus Living Waters Ministry. With host and founder Richard Case and co-host and retreat leader Kathy Ricconi. Today is our special guest day, where we will hear from a friend of the ministry who will share their insight and stories on truth in this chaotic world. And now your host, Richard Case.
Well, good morning, everybody. This is Guest Thursday, and Kathy, we have a very, very special guest again, Ken and Margie Blanchard. And Ken and Margie are both good friends of ours, and Ken was on before. He shared.
Yes, but we haven't met Margie yet.
No,
So the audience has not met her yet.
So we'll meet the real story behind it all.
No doubt about it. I married above myself.
That's it. You married up. Yeah.
Good job.
And as everybody knows, Ken is a famous consultant, speaker, wrote the 1 Minute Manager, and lots of material. How many books have you written, Ken, altogether?
They said it's about 65.
Wow.
65 books, and your company is it still? It's called the Blanchard Companies, right?
Mm-hmm.
How's that going? What's happening?
Our son is the president now.
Okay.
And our daughter is the head of marketing, and Margie's brother, who was born when she was a freshman at Cornell, he's our CEO. And Scott's wife, Madeline, has headed up all of our coaching in the past, and now is doing all kinds of great stuff.
Yeah. And through COVID, because you used to do mostly live, and
Right.
then you had to learn to do it differently. So how has that changed your company in terms of now how you deliver your content?
Tremendously. I mean, we're doing an awful lot of instructor-led over video. I think I heard last month we did over 600 sessions that were remote, compared to at the beginning of COVID, maybe we were doing 15. So there's been a marked change.
Wow.
Not only
Now, has that enabled you to reach a larger audience with the coaching as well then?
It has, and also allowed us to spread training out.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not just a 2-day event, it's over 6 weeks. It's often with a cohort. Often
That's
you're being
great.
trained with the people that you work with. So it's actually, in a weird way, been a blessing
Mm-hmm.
to the whole learning process.
That's great.
That's neat. Well, tell us a little bit about how you two met, and then what led you, to get married, and then tell us about how long you've been married and your family a little bit. Where did you meet? When did you meet? How did all that happen?
Well,
We met at Cornell,
right.
and Margie was dating a good friend of mine who was a great dancer. And
Uh-oh.
we had parties, and we always would end up having to all back off the floor while Dick and Margie went out there and did their thing, And then she ended up going out with another good buddy of mine, Lee Schmaltz, and that's how we started to talk. I had graduated, and it was senior week, and there was a party over at Lee's fraternity, and I used to go to different places and not just hang out at our fraternity. And he said, "What are you going to do this summer?" I said, "I'm going to be in Ithaca, taking a couple of courses and playing golf. I always do that. It's great." And then Margie said, "You're going to be there too. What were you doing there?"
So I was a speech therapist going into my senior year, and I had a job at an Easter seal camp about 8 miles out of Ithaca. So it registered in my mind that Ken was going to be there, but not very hard. And on my first day off, when we went into Ithaca with a new friend, I said, "There's one person I know that's here." And we went looking for Ken, and I found a roommate of his at a fraternity he was staying, and never got to see him. But then he followed up on that and invited me out for a drink as a favor to his friend, and we fell in love
Aww.
that summer. We especially fell in love when I brought him to meet my family who were vacationing at Skinny Atlas, and Ken just thought they were cute and fun and funny, and we're all a little strange anyway, but there were I remember my sister at the time was negotiating with my parents to be able to sit on the dock in the hoist with her boyfriend at night, and there was great problems going on about that, and Ken thought that was absolutely darling. And so anyway, he fell in love with Skinny Atlas, he fell in love with me, and we married a year later.
Oh,
So did he turn out to be a good dancer too? Very
He
important
did.
question.
He turned out to
Oh,
be
good.
very, very important. And but I think the family thing was the most important. I think
Yeah.
Hmm.
the fact that my dad's a very handy guy. A lot of people were intimidated by him. Ken wasn't the least bit intimidated by my dad. He'd
Mhm.
just follow him around and offer him tools and stuff like that. But
That's great.
he,
so were you then, Ken? Were you then in grad school when you got married, Ken, or what were you doing then?
When I graduated, which was when I met Margie, I started my master's degree at Colgate. I wanted to be a dean of students, and they told me I should get a degree in educational leadership. And so there was a program at Colgate, and I applied and got in provisionally because I wasn't a great student. But I was a government major in philosophy, and the education courses seemed kind of boring to me. And I'm sitting at the bar at the Colgate Inn, bemoaning that I'm going to be here for 2 years taking these courses. And just the way God works, there was a young assistant professor of sociology sitting next to me. His wife was back packing up their stuff, and I was complaining to him, and he said, "Well, why don't you come and major with me?" And I said, "What's that?" He said, "Sociology." I said, "What do you do?" He said, "We study leadership and groups and teams." And that's great. So I switched and got a master's in sociology, and said, "I'm ready to be a dean." They said, "No, you need a doctor's degree." I said, "Doctor's degree?" You know. And that's it. So I had taken a course from a wonderful guy who taught educational leadership one summer, and I called him. I said, "Would you provisionally accept me into your doctoral program?" And he did. So I'm a provisional guy. I ended up getting a PhD in educational leadership and all. And so that was fun. And Margie pursued her degree in speech pathology. And where else did you go from there?
Well, I wound up going back when we went back to Cornell. I got my master's degree, mostly working with the stuttering population of students
Oh, interesting.
at Cornell, and very fascinating work, and got my master's for that, and then we went off. Ken got his first job finally in Ohio University, and by then we had Scotty, who was a year old, and I was pregnant with Debbie, and we moved to Athens, Ohio, which is pretty much in the middle of nowhere.
Right.
But a charming town, a charming town. It was just in the middle of the 60s, though, with we would come out of the movie theater and there'd be tear gas in the streets because it was
Wow.
over the Kent State
Yeah,
world.
Kent State, yeah.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, we had been involved with the church as newly married couples, and I had been very involved as a teenager. But we fell away from the church because of just the way that it treated the minister who was supporting some of the sit-ins. And we fell away from organized going to church probably for 10 years.
Yeah.
Because of
Wow.
which was very sad in retrospect now because of our children not getting a foundation that we were Easter and Christmas people, but
Right.
they didn't really get back to an active faith until we moved back to Amherst, and then finally went to California. So it was I think back on it now and I feel badly about that. Not much support in the academic world for people going to church. I think we had one couple who went to church of all of our friends. And so when we finally got to California, we got back into church, and then with some of the success that we had with the Young Presidents Organization and especially the 1 Minute Manager, we had to we had to start, looking at a much larger picture of our life.
Right.
Mm.
And
It
Ken,
was
when
interesting.
go ahead, Ken.
When the 1 Minute Manager came out, it was so successful that I was invited on the Hour of Power
Yeah.
with Robert Shula in
Yeah.
his heyday. And we weren't really back with our faith much then. And Shula said, Ken, I love the 1 Minute Manager, but who's the greatest 1 Minute Manager of all time? And I said, who's that? He said, Jesus. I said, really?
Mm.
Yeah. He was clear on goals. Isn't that your first secret 1 minute goal setting? Yeah. And he said, you and Tom Peters didn't invent management by wandering around. Jesus did. He wandered from one little village to another little village. If anybody showed interest, he'd praise him, heal him. Isn't that your second secret 1 minute praising? Yeah. And if people stepped out of line, he wasn't afraid to give them a 1 minute reprimand. He threw the moneylenders out of the temple, and that's your third secret 1 minute reprimand. Yeah. And so it kind of opened our eyes to the whole thing. And then we started to read the gospel and laugh, because everything we had ever taught about leadership, Jesus did with these 12 incompetent guys he hired. You wouldn't have hired that lot. And so it was right, kind of an interesting journey. And then we get a call to write a book with Norman Vincent Peale.
Yeah.
He and his wife Ruth had a tremendous impact on
They did.
our lives. What did they tell us, Marge, about our faith?
That we hadn't suited up yet, but we've always been on the Lord's team, but we just hadn't suited up yet. So the cry was, when are we going to suit up? And also we were pretty impressed by the Young Presidents Organization. These were young men mostly who'd become presidents before the age of 40, and their lives, a lot of them were a total mess. They money did not make them happy. In fact, there were many divorces.
Yeah.
It caused us to really start thinking about what was most important, and it was actually wonderful preparation for the success that we then experienced with the 1 Minute Manager. And we were, I think, more aware of the trappings of success and what it can do to couples like that. So that was helpful.
How many years had you been married when you had gone through and developed that 1 Minute Manager?
Well, we got married in '62, so it would have been 20 years, because it came out in '82.
Yeah, 20 years.
And you had, by that time, you had moved out to California?
Yeah,
Yes.
we had, yeah.
Okay. And the 1 Minute Manager came out. And then, is that when you started your company? How did your company come about? Because I know Margie's been very active in that whole thing.
Well, we actually started the company before the 1 Minute Manager came out, because when we got out there, this Young Presidents group invited us to do sessions for them, and they really loved what we did. And they said, we were there for a 1 year sabbatical leave. What are you going to do at the end of the year? And we said, we're going back to university. And they said, no, you're not. And we said, what do you mean? You're going to start your own company. And he said, we can't even balance our own checkbook. How are we and they said, we'll help you. And 5 YPOers, one from San Diego, one from Oregon, one from Illinois, one from Pennsylvania, one from Mexico City, all volunteered to be our advisory board, flew to California, helped to set up the company. They were just amazing.
We also had clients. We had clients before we had a company.
Sure.
That's amazing.
I advise that. If you've got people that want you to do things even before you have a company or letterhead or anything. We
actually have something to do.
We actually have something to do. And so we were very blessed when I think back on it, just to, and the young presidents were very hungry for information. They were, in the middle of either inheriting a company or growing one. They were front row people. And they were our age also. Half the time I started speaking for them as well. And half the time I was speaking and wishing I was in another session because I wanted to learn what was in that other session. So it was a very heady time, but also a wonderful experience to have clients and also people that had small enough organizations that they could implement what it was we were teaching.
Yeah.
So it was a very, and then it brought us into contact with not only Norman Vincent Peale, but Bill Hybels and Bob Buford and people that really were very interested in these mega churches, very interested in what was happening in the church world, but also were very grounded in their faith. And I think that was
that's great.
all of a sudden we had friends and colleagues who were believers and were, you know, that whole idea of surrounding yourself with people who support you in your faith is really an important idea.
Yes.
And I think it's one that we were just very blessed with the people that came into our lives.
Yeah.
Bob Buford started Halftime, which was kind of helping people move from success to significance.
Yeah.
You know, very faith-based. And he said to me, Ken, I hope you don't mind if I ask the brightest member of your family to be on my board. So Margie was on.
Oh no, I had more like 20 years. It was
Yeah.
amazing. It was an amazing experience. So very good
Yeah.
experience.
What
That's
was it
great.
you talked about? There became a moment, as you phrased it, as you suited up and really then embraced walking with God, walking with Christ. When was that, and what led to that? And then we can talk a little bit about what that means to you.
Well, I think what led to that is the Lord sending us all these people, like Norman and Ruth Peel, and then Buford and Bill Hybels, and you know, all of them, and so they really kind of put the squeeze on us, you know, and so we really could see what that was happening with their lives and meeting people with them, and said, this is really silly not to have a teammate in the Lord.
We had a difficult experience with the president of our company, and Ken finally just bowed his head and said, I can't do this by myself. I need your support. And that was Ken lives his faith out loud, so I'm watching that, you know, and so he really submitted, and then again more people came into our lives that had support and messages for that. And about 2 years later, I did the same thing, just said, I can't do this alone. By then I was president of the company and needed all the help I could get. And so it was a gradual process, I would say, but more than anything, we went to Marriage Encounter, which was a wonderful thing, invested in our marriage. We went through a year of counseling because when I was doing my doctorate, that's a very isolating experience. I think I lost my entire personality, and I had to get it back. And we had a wonderful therapist who worked with us for a year, actually, when we first moved to California. We joined a church, so things, you know, personally started working for us.
Yeah. What as you and how many years ago was that? Would you say as you look at how many years have you been married, by the way?
60.
60 years. Oh.
Wow.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
Things really started to heat up when we were married about 25 years when Margie, when she signed up, you know, I went off to a workshop. Bill Hodges gave Margie a book. Who was that book by?
It was called The Reason Why, and it was by an Australian, a wonderful guy. And I read it that afternoon while everyone was meeting. And at the end of the day, he asked for the order, and I just signed right up, and that was a good thing.
That's awesome. How old were your children then when that took place? And how did you guys stepping into a stronger faith affect them at that point in the game?
Oh, I think then they were off at college. Probably.
Oh, okay.
And so I don't think it had quite the impact. I think they worried in some level, you know, what was happening to our friends. Some of our friends worried that Ken was going to sort of go off the deep end and all of it. But we also had some interesting experiences. After about, I'd say 15 years, we had just moved to California, and I finally decided to stop trying to change Ken. It wasn't working anyway. He was never going to be handy like my father. He was never going to, all the things. And I looked at him and I thought, you know, he's such a wonderful person, and then he has some of these things that I don't like. And I decided that I was just going to love the whole package. That, you know, if Ken wanted to change, let God change him, but I was going to get off that whole thing. And that was a very important time.
Yeah.
I think who've been married a long time will almost tell you when they decided to stop changing their spouse,
Right.
to start loving the whole package. And so I think that was a really
And I
key
think
thing.
people who break up focus on the few things that bug them,
Right.
Right.
not on the positive things that brought them together initially. It really
Mm-hmm.
is sad. So we were really fortunate that Margie decided to fall in love with my total package.
That's it. That's it. And we can see how it's easy for you to fall in love with her on the other side. You didn't have to worry about that. She was already pretty cool, right?
I know, yeah. So she was doing just great.
Yeah. What role, as you then embraced it deeper, has Scripture, time in the Word, abiding, prayer, dialogue with God? What role has that played now as you've grown together in Christ?
Well, I think we both have our own way that we keep up. I do a lot of readings in the morning in the Daily Word, and Jesus Calling and all, and then Margie does her own readings and all, and then we'll talk and all, but we haven't really sat down and done Bible study per se together.
No.
Although we share what we're learning and
yeah, that's normally, by the way, how we recommend people is that don't worry about studying together. It's just study your personal time and then share it with each other. So that's healthy.
Ken's very eager to share. He loves talking out loud about everything he's learning, which is great. And I also read a lot, and then I tell him what I'm learning, and then he lectures on it. Very auditory person.
The professor, right?
I don't like to read that much. I like to hear about it. So he reads and tells me.
Yeah. We've also, though, I think, when you ask yourself, who has a marriage that you'd like to model your marriage after? Realize there aren't a lot of models out there.
No.
So we looked at our parents, and they stayed together, which was great, and they loved each other, but they certainly weren't a team the way we wanted to be a team. And I think Rick, I think that seminar we did with you and those other couples around unity, that we needed to, with important decisions, really take into consideration what both of us felt.
Right.
And if we couldn't agree, then we needed to postpone making the decision instead of just, steamrolling over. And see where both in our own marriage as well as others, and especially in my parents' marriage, there was some steamrolling that went on and some of the things. And so Ken's secretary at the time, every time we had to make a decision about the use of money, the use of time, mostly, especially time and travel, she would say, we need a unity decision. It would go right on our calendar. We need a unity decision. You guys need to get together, and you need to either decide what we're going to do, or we just need to decide not to decide. And but I think in the background of it all, we really wanted to be a strong team, and to honor each other's point of view, even if they were different. And when it comes down to spending money and time and all of the things that are really important, if you can figure out a way to negotiate those times, I think that's a very, very important thing. And praying together, praying over decisions. I think whether you're a team sort of plays out in the way you make those decisions and how do you feel about them and things like that.
Yeah.
So
how have you two, as you've talked about teamwork and going to unity, how have you actually approached that together? What kind of things do you do to actually work through that to get to oneness and understanding?
Well, we have one rule is we never go to bed upset.
Yep.
We'll stay up all night to make sure we work through it, or table it,
Yeah.
We'll get back to it tomorrow.
Yeah.
I think we've also tried things that haven't worked. Like I remember one time we decided that we were the use of money, giving money away. Ken and I were each going to have our own little pot of money that we could decide on our own what to give to the church or to people, or our kids or whatever. And we each had our own little pot. Well, Ken he blew right through his pot right away. And that's when we decided that at least at a certain amount we needed to get together and work through it and really take the time and not simmer with resentment or anything like that. I think you really do need to carve out the time to have those discussions, even if they don't, they're not your favorite things to do. I'm much better doing anything like that in the morning, and so our big discussions about use of time, whether we're going to do this, need to be more in the morning. By evening, I'm tired.
That's an important thing to note too, to know your patterns with that.
Yeah, so
we also did a bunch of that date night, concept.
Yeah.
Where you go out to dinner, and the rule is you can't talk about work, you can't
Right.
talk about,
Right.
you speak about your relationship, and that's a really powerful thing.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it really is. We try to encourage couples to do that who, have that date night, and when you go out, what do you guys talk about? What do you when you go out on your little date night? Still, 60 years later, why? How do you approach that together?
Well, one of the things is what are we going to do with money?
or opportunities.
Yeah.
Is one. Yeah.
We started a thing called SKI, which stands for Spend Your Kids' Inheritance. So we told them that we weren't going to leave them any money. We were going to spend it on family opportunities.
Yeah.
So this next Thursday, we've hired a private plane to fly 8 dogs and 8 people across the country.
And where will you be going?
Back to San Diego.
Yeah,
But
Nice.
it was really a problem for our kids, particularly they have the big dogs, and they had to go to LA, and if it was too hot in one end, they wouldn't let them fly, and also we decided, well, we call them the pup planes.
Yeah, it's a huge expense, but it's something that we can do, and but it was a big decision because it would mean maybe we wouldn't take another vacation or something like that. So, you have to decide what's really important, and it plays itself out in that. We're at a time in our lives which is a very sweet time, actually. I think, our kids are doing well. The company's having its best year ever. But
That's great.
More than that, we're just so grateful, for even being healthy.
Yeah.
And for having each other right now. We have so many friends that are losing spouses, and so I think I saw this happiness index one time that you start out in your 20s and 30s at like maybe 60 or 70%, and then the curve kind of goes down as you get more complicated and have kids and trying to make your way in your life and everything, and then it keeps going up. And boy, when you're in your 70s and 80s, it's higher than it was when you were in your 20s or 30s. And I think that's not an uncommon thing for people who are as blessed as we are anyway, with so many good things, because those middle years when you've got kids and you're trying to make a career work, and you've got to work hard. I mean, you do have to work hard, and there were many years I felt badly for him that he wasn't around as much for the kids, just because the kids were so cute and everything, but he was having to do some other things. And but the one thing I will say is at least we agreed on that. I don't ever remember saying, if Ken was traveling, well, it's too bad your dad's not here.
Yeah.
Because kids are smart. Yeah. And if you're going to make a decision like that, and one of you is going to be traveling or putting in late hours, it's better if you're a team, and you agree
Absolutely.
that you're a team, and you don't let your kids think that there's something wrong about this decision because you have made that decision. And so obviously if you get way out of balance, then you need to be brought back. That's this movie that this Mulligan movie that Ken has been involved with is about a guy that's let his work life ruin his family, and he might be successful, but he's separated. His son doesn't like him, that kind of thing. And so this is a wonderful reminder. It will be a good movie for couples groups and churches.
Yep. We're going to we're coming to our end of this session. We want to pick up again next week with this topic of the movie, and I want to come back to your creating memories and talk a little bit about your beautiful place up there in Skaneateles, New York. A little bit of history with that, Kathy, that I'd like Margie to share, which actually is around her family, and then what they do every year, and this opportunity to build family memories, as well as the movie and the ministry that you guys are both involved in. So we'll pick that up again next time. Thank you so much for sharing your story. Congratulations, 60 years married. That's fantastic.
It's amazing.
And
yes.
We can tell that you actually like each other. So that's exciting to see how you become a team. And we encourage everybody that it's possible that you can, as a couple, become a team. And like you said, Margie, actually, it can get sweeter and sweeter and sweeter if you have a heart to follow God in that. So we're excited about that. So Kathy, we'll pick that up again tomorrow. We have End Times Friday tomorrow, and we'll be able to pick them up again next week.
Great. Looking forward to it. You guys are such a joy to have on. Just love hearing your stories. So thank you for blessing everyone with your conversation and just sharing so openly. And we'll see you next week.
Yep. We'll see you then.
All right. Look forward to it.
Thank you for joining us for today's episode of Come and See, your podcast for truth in a world of chaos. Brought to you by All for Jesus Living Waters Ministry. Send us your questions and comments, and tune in tomorrow for more answers to your personal questions about living life in God's truth. Remember, God's will is best and none better. His truth brings peace in this world of chaos.